If there's one thing I enjoy, it's being around people and with people. No? So when I got employed, my first job was with Standard newspapers. That time it was not Standard Media Group. It used to be called the East African Standard, the Standard. It has morphed. And I started specifically working for the Now magazine. And I was in the advertising department, meaning I was selling advertising space. While I was in university, because you had a lot of idle time, I saw my friends were going to study something, so I joined them. I didn't even know what it was. So I went and I did a diploma in marketing. So that was the first time I did marketing, but I did it out of idleness. We had so much time. We had time on our hands. And I personally don't like being idle. So after university, the first job was with Standard newspapers. I was employed by Mutahi Kagwe. He was then the commercial manager at Standard newspapers. And we were selling advertising space. So we would go to sell huko industrial area to Mwindis, selling to, you come up with an idea of a supplement. Like for example, you say, I'm going to do Koinange Street. Then you walk the whole of Koinange Street convincing everybody to advertise. It was not easy. I was thin as a rake. Then from Standard, I joined Kenya Postal Directories. Postal Directories was just brand new. And when they did their first edition, it was full of errors. So everybody was complaining. So my job as brand manager essentially was just to deal with customer complaints. I don't remember a day when I was not dealing with customer complaints. I survived 1 year. It was not, it's a very negative environment when every day all you're getting is negative, negative, negative. I survived 1 year, and then I got a job with Colgate Palmolive. From Colgate is when I jumped out and got into entrepreneurship. In those days, the only advertising agencies or creative agencies or marketing agencies that existed in Kenya, I believe, was McCann Erickson and MCL Search and AY&R. So if you needed to do any other promotion that you want to do, there was no one to do it. So as a brand manager, if I wanted to run a promotion, I did it myself. And so I realized, because we're always constantly looking for somebody, and then the two people who started agencies, both were working for Unilever, which was our competitor, so now I couldn't work with them. So I was challenged. So I realized, oh, if I jump ship, and I already understand the inside, and now I'm on the outside, I'll be able to service these guys. So I jumped out. And actually, the first business I thought of was to go back to Colgate. And because my MD liked me, he supported me, and so my first car check and my first car business was with Colgate. But I was still thinking very small. I wasn't thinking as an entrepreneur. And thereafter is when I now started branching out and got other clients. So from that time, professional marketing services was born. And for us, it's more known now as PMS, but when we started, it was just professional marketing services, and we never thought of an acronym. It's actually our clients who developed the acronym, and then we realized we liked it. So I used to get into the office, I wipe the floor, I dust the tables, I clean everything, and then after that, I wipe my hands, I sit down, I become MD. I do the proposals, I'm the messenger, I take them to industrial area to try and push. We didn't have email that time. You guys have come into a time when it's so easy. So if you needed to actually send a document, you physically had to deliver it. So that's what we used to do. If you were lucky, you could fax it at best. So at that time, I had to physically deliver things and all. And it took me about 2 months to realize that it was cheaper for me to hire a messenger who would clean and wash for me, and then I could concentrate on my core business. And so the lesson I learned there is that you should not be using a $10,000 brain to do $1,000 work. Because when I'm cleaning the floor and going to deliver documents in industrial area, that's a waste of my brain, I could hire somebody cheaper and they will be more effective than myself. Because the waste of the opportunity costs of me wiping the floor and going to Inda, So that's how I started as one man show. So we became two, starting with the driver, messenger, cleaner. And then after that, I moved on. And I would say that the most important recruitment I had to do once the business started growing was finance. Because in any business, finance is the heart of the business. If your finances are not in order, you don't have a business. And I think for most people, that's how they run their businesses without realizing it's not a hobby, it's a business. If you're not making money, you're not in business. You're doing something because you enjoy it. So you have to make money. If you're not making money, you're not in business. I would say that the first thing that you start with is you start with the problem of HR, because you can't afford to hire the people you need. That's the first challenge that any business faces. The second challenge is cash flow management, Because as work is increasing, you need more money and you don't have the money. And most people don't pay you in a timely manner. So in as much as you've done the work, you don't have the money. And you know, cash is king in business. Huh? Yeah. You can have all the LPOs, you can have all the pending bills, but hey, cash is king. So if you don't have cash, your cash flow is messed. And so that's the other major challenge. And remember that borrowing money is very, very expensive, because every time you're borrowing, you're working for the bank. That 14% you're paying them would have been your margin. So unless, if you are earning a 20% margin, then you pay the bank 14, you only have 6%. How do you keep your business going, you know? So that is another very major challenge, cash flow management. And then I would say the one that most people overlook is actually managing growth. Because when you start a business, you start a small business, you know everything, you can manage everything that's happening. Then it grows. And once it grows, you have different people, different departments. So you have to keep continuously improving yourself to learn some of these things. And for me, it meant that I had to go back to school, learn. 2, I had to spend a lot of time reading. Lucky for me, I love reading. So I had to spend a lot of time reading. In fact, it reached a point, I remember we were going on holiday with the kids for Christmas. And that Christmas, my children bought me novels. And they told me, Mommy, we've bought you novels because the only books you read are about money. So up to today, when I buy books, I always ask myself, am I buying books of money or just a novel? Because I still read a lot. So nowadays when I buy books, I have to buy, if I buy a book for money, I have to buy 2 books for just reading. Because I say that, you know, there has to be a balance in life. But for me, I find I still I'm very driven to improve my skills. So Reckitt Benckiser has been very instrumental to the growth of PMS Group. The other client that is very important to us is Bidco Oil Refineries. Because we've been with Bidco Oil Refineries from inception, and they're still our clients. We do their merchandising, we do their advertising. Because the business has been growing. What we are doing has been morphing as the market dynamics demand more. And so we're doing so much for Bidco today, much more than where we started. We also have clients like Del Monte. We handle Del Monte's merchandising. We handle MultiChoice. So most of the big names that you can talk about in Kenya, we actually have worked for them. And you'll also find that we diversified now into 360 communication. And so in having that, it means that we handle a lot of corporate communications. And in corporate communications, we're doing a fantastic job, especially for government agencies. We are the ones who have been instrumental in the growth of the brand IFMIS. You know what IFMIS is? Yeah. See, when we started, anybody I told IFMIS didn't know what IFMIS was. Today, when you talk about IFMIS, people know. So I take credit for that because we created all the communication around IFMIS. We're the ones who developed the brand, etc. Okay. The other brand that we'll talk about is the ICT Authority. We've worked a lot with the ICT Authority, and that's something that we're very proud of. We work with Vision 2030. So anytime you see anything on Vision 2030, that's our work. And so those are some of the things that we do. ICDC, Kasneb, we've done the complete rebranding of Kasneb. You remember Kasneb used to be that old-fashioned, you know, examination body. If you look at the branding today of Kasneb, unfortunately our contract came to an end and they haven't hired somebody to now propagate the brand. But the brand we developed for them is so posh and so stylish. Did you see? It was so much, yeah. Exactly, we were doing that work. Now they're not doing it. But let me tell you, that is a brand that we revamped and we felt so good about. We're also the agency that actually changed the dynamics of marketing property in Kenya. If you remember, in Kenya, there was nobody who used to have any proper branding for any properties. People used to just sell plots, houses, there was no brand. We were the ones who developed Thicker Greens. And Thicker Greens is the pioneer in estate developments in Kenya. Everybody else has borrowed from what Thicker Greens did. So we're very proud of our work, but we're even more proud of the teams that work on those brands, because obviously I do very little. You know, the clients are now so many. So my work is to make sure the systems, the processes, the standards are continuously going up. And I keep traveling out of the country to go for trainings and to benchmark against other agencies. We have a partner agency in the US in Washington, DC. They're the biggest woman-owned agency in the world. And so from them, because they have offices in 32 countries, it means that we can have best practice from the whole world in terms of any form of communication. So that's how we keep growing our business and growing our brands. Being a mother and a grandmother now, you start thinking very much about legacy. and you start thinking about the future as opposed to think about yourself. You know, in stages of life, when you're in your 20s, the concerns are really about yourself. Because you're thinking, oh, what will I do with the next stage? Oh, when will I get married? Oh, when will I have babies? Oh, when will I be able to afford a car? Oh, you know, that's what you worry about. But you get to a point where now you get children, then you worry about their school fees, you worry about what, and then now you get to the point I'm at, I'm still paying school fees, but you start thinking more broadly, and you start realizing that money is not important unless it's doing something that is worthwhile in this world. And one of the things for me is empowering young people to make the best of themselves. So for me, when people work at PMS, I teach them everything I can. I teach them how to manage the business, because I expect that when they leave PMS and they go and start their own business, they should make minimal mistakes. Because in a small business, you learn a lot. So in as much as PMS has become a big business, I try to make people understand everything. The same way Colgate opened up my eyes by teaching me the P&L, I like these people, everybody to learn. So if you're doing any project, however small, I want you to know, was it profitable?